Mooney's Mythic podcast, sponsored by, sponsored, sponsored by, sponsored by. Well, actually, it's not sponsored by anyone, but I was just thinking it would be nice to practice having a little sponsorship jingle at the beginning. So there it is. Maybe it could be sponsored by something nice, ethical, sustainable. So any ideas, put them on a postcard to me. And welcome, thank you, thanks for coming back. Thanks for coming back. I'm so grateful you're here. I'm so delighted that you're listening to this. Thank you. And thanks for all the amazing feedback. Thanks for your support, guys. Like, I really feel like my tribe, my team are all behind me as I bring this out into the world, whatever it is, whatever it turns into. It just feels good and it feels worthwhile. And yeah, you've been amazing. So yeah, everyone who's messaged me, everyone who said keep going, well done, and told me where you've been when you've been listening to it and what you've been doing, it's absolute nectar to me. Thank you. And let me know what you want or how you see it going, or what most nourishes you or excites you or makes you chuckle. I'd love to hear about it. Did make me feel a bit nervous as well. I like when I recorded the first one, I was imagining no one listening and that was very freeing. And then I went to record it yesterday and I got really sweaty and I didn't end up recording it. So I'm back on board today. Thanks for Emma Stowe. She's anchoring the nerves for me. So thanks. Yeah, gratitude, absolutely. And I'm seeing in my mind's eye now a swathes of colour, beautiful, magical array of delight. And that's because the Aurora Borealis graced us this weekend in Glastonbury. I didn't know anything about it, so I just went to bed Friday night and I wake up Saturday morning to everyone talking about it. Total FOMO. I was like, really felt like I'd, what did she say, Kate Tempest? Was that a pivotal moment I just went stumbling past? Not quite like that, but I feel like that's what life can be like. So Saturday night, I was all in to stay up all night and watch it. So I got my duvet and I put it on the trampoline out in the front garden, and I thought, right, I'm going to sleep on the trampoline. And I've got my mum staying. And my mum said to me, if it's really good, wake me up. That felt like a massive responsibility, actually, to kind of like decide when the light show of nature was good enough to wake someone up and get them up. And that filled up a lot of my thinking time as I was watching the sky. I lay on the trampoline and sweet relief to be outdoors. Sweet relief to be outdoors at night. Really special. Looking up at the stars. I mean, that's where all the stories come from, I believe. Just our ancestors lying on their backs, looking up at the stars, dreaming these stories in. And I wasn't sure. When you stare at black for so long, you can see all sorts of colours in it. I just wasn't sure if I could see the northern lights or not. But I was graced by the beauty of the cosmos that night. It was absolutely, I started to feel very full up on the inside and very kind of, awed, just totally awed, which was a really beautiful feeling. I wasn't sure if I was seeing clouds or if, I don't know what I was seeing. So I went for a walk. I thought, I get right out into the darkness. I go out on Wiriel Hill and get right out into the darkness. So I went for a walk, and it was as if dawn at any moment could break. There was a lightness about the sky, but it didn't. And then it was just the possibility of the lightness filling the sky, just the knowing that those lights were out there was really filling me. And then on the way home, I saw a little badger just running across the road. It had such a strong impact on my body, looking at that badger, watching that badger. My whole body seemed to sort of soften. And I realised how that badger is not trying to lose weight. That badger is curves and round places, and it's totally in its own skin, in its own body, in a way that I'm really not. And I felt the gift of that badger's presence. And then I remembered many years ago, my friend Jack Everett, who died recently, he gave me a little pouch with some badger claws in. Medicine gift, he said. And he said the badger claws are a symbol of being able to scratch away to the truth. But he'd put them in a very soft pouch because he said it was a strong medicine and needed softening. I think he was talking about me. So I started thinking about badgers and badger medicine. What does that mean? So I did a bit of research about badgers and thinking, do I resonate with any of these attributes that badgers have? I did find out a few interesting things, that they've got lots of different smells. They can punk out different smells at different times. So they can have one if they're scared, and definitely my whole body can just stink immediately. I'm sure it's the same for other people if I get really frightened. In fact, I had a big shock once and my armpit hair went white. And they can have other smells. I mean, maybe my kind of pheromone switch is a bit shonky because I'm not noticing that particularly. Maybe that's what I could call upon the badger to sort of switch on my pheromones. I don't know if I'd want that actually, but it's a thought. It's there in the bag if I want to take it up. A badger has got such sensitive hearing. I know this is the same with a lot of animals. It's got such sensitive hearing that it can hear a worm. It can hear a worm moving deep under its feet. You just relax enough, tune in enough with our hearing to even just imagine what that's like. Just think about what's deep under your feet right now. I mean, I've got Craig who plays the bagpipes. But beyond that, the earth under his flat, there are worms. And there's probably badger tunnels as well, they stretch for 50 metres and they're handed down, they can be used for hundreds of years. I just love that. I just love stopping wherever I am and just feeling deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into the earth, to all that's going on, the rock and the crystal and the burrowing creatures and the holes and the roots. I love standing between two big trees and just thinking, wow, both your roots are underneath me. That's just such a great place to be on the earth. I also found out about badgers that they can have sex, and then they can have an egg that's been fertilised, but they can delay implantation. They can delay it until they know that they've got enough around them to bring that little baby badger, that cub, into the world in a good way. And I love that. I'm really bad at that. Yeah, just to think about, have I got everything I need? Not just like, I'm doing it now. I've got to do it now. I've got to do it now. Have I got everything I need? Is this the right time? Can I hold on to whatever this is, whether it's an idea or an action or whatever? Can I hold on until I've gathered around me everything I need? It's like the opposite to what I've done with this podcast, which has just been just to do it, and then read all the things that say, don't do it until you've got 3 episodes and don't da-da-da. I've been reading a lot about how to go about making a good podcast and all the ways I've got it wrong. And sometimes you just got to do things in your own way, haven't you? Another thing I learned about them is that they have quite baggy skin, which means when you grab hold of them, they can you can't really grab them. They can get away really easily, which I thought was a great skill to have. And the last thing was that they're friends with hedgehogs. Yeah, they're friends with hedgehogs, and they only sometimes eat them. Now, I'm no relationship expert, but that doesn't seem to be a good foundation for friendship, as far as I'm concerned. That you may have a friend that you sometimes eat. So, honour to the hedgehog for being that person in the hedgehogs in the badger's life. Which brings me on to my hedgehog benefit gig. So on the 7th of June, Paul Thompson and Sarah Curtis and I will be at St Benedict's Church in Glastonbury, and we will be telling tales of all things hedgehog. Sarah Curtis. Check her out. Check her out. When I get used to all the fiddly bits of recording a podcast, I will bring her in to sing to you, because we were walking up the steps in Wells Cathedral and she sang a little bit in the sound chamber there, and literally the tears were just rolling down my face. I wasn't even accessing feeling. The tears just responded. Amazing. Yeah, and Paul Thompson, I haven't met him, and I've heard his music and it's gorgeous, and he seems to be a very, very sweet man. He went around England on a milk float, I do believe. So come on the 7th of June. It's going to be a great and sweet and funny night, and 10% of the night's going to go to Prickles, which is a hedgehog care charity. Yeah. So thinking about gigs, thinking about storytelling out in the real world, I have been thinking about atmosphere and creating a really magical and sweet atmosphere, like a really sacred, gorgeous, kind of boudoir-y little, real kind of nest. What I tell stories into, how I can kind of create more and more atmosphere. And one of the things I wanted to get in place for next year is I was having a massage, and the woman who was giving me a massage, she had one of these things where you put water in and essential oils, and they sort of steam out. It kind of steams out. And I was watching the steam coming out, and I was thinking, with candlelight, it's like having a smoke machine, but sort of cheaper and not at all toxic. And I got really excited, and I went to buy one, and they were like 30 quid, which is just, I'm not spending £30 on something like that, particularly when I'm quite likely to, trip over it and break it at some point. So I decided, my granddad always used to say, I'll fall over one of them, which basically meant, he'd get it for free, or he'd manage to find one. So I thought, I'll fall over one of them, I'll look out for one. And then Sunday morning, because my mum's just moved house, so she wanted to look for some bits and bobs, we went to Cheddar boot sale. And I thought, I'll look out for one of those. And my son said to me, I'm not going. it's just bongs and boiled sweets, which I think is a particularly clear insight into what he puts his attention on, because I haven't really noticed any bongs or boiled sweets there. I wanted to get a essential oil diffuser, and when I go to Cheddar Boot Sale I see cheese and earrings. So that got me thinking. Pay attention to your intention. Where are you putting your attention? In this moment right now, in this podcast, there's a moment here for you. Just to build a picture in your mind's eye of what would be the most nurturing, the most nourishing, the kindest thing you could do for yourself in this moment, in this day. What would it be? Yeah, lovely. So we went to Cheddar Boot Sale. I mean, I love Cheddar Boot Sale. It's like, it's gorgeous there. It's full of tat. Everything's a pound. Not everything's a pound, but I like to pay a pound for things. I like pounds, you know. I'm not that good at parting with notes. They're not coming my way so fast. And lo and behold, halfway through looking around the boot sale, amongst the foot spars and the one flip-flops and the leg warmers with holes in and the house phones, there she was. This atomizer, and it already had a sticker on. I didn't need to ask for the price. It said £1, and I was just like totally excited. I just like gave her my pound. I bought some flowers from her as well. Actually gave her £3 because I was that excited about getting this atomizer, and I brought it home. And I'm going to just set the scene for you. I got it home. I think I might need to get a different chair for podcasting, because I feel like this is a bit of a noisy chair. But for now, it works. So imagine you're in a comfy chair. I hope you're in a comfy chair. But if you're not, just allow me to set the scene. You're in the cellar of a great building, full of cushions and a crackling fire. And by the fire, there's a storyteller. The room is candle-lit. Steam begins to billow. Now, you can't see the steam billowing, can you? But you can hear that noise, can't you? That's the noise it makes. The payoff for having a great plume of steam coming out is that noise, which I have to say, just turn it off. Just really puts me off my story stride. So now I've got this massive lump of noisy plastic and I'm not really sure what to do with it. I'm going to have to find another way in. Another way to evoke the ancient magic of story. And when I gather my thoughts, when I look at the landscape within myself, I see the moors. I see the dark moor, the river sparkling. I see the mists rolling over the fields. It's a place that I've walked upon and dreamed upon my whole life, ever since I got stonkingly lost on 10 tours with my friend Jackie Elston. You were great, Jackie, by the way. You had it much better. I didn't have a clue where I was going, but thanks for that. And I'll be there next week for about 10 days because I'm supporting a vision quest. And a vision quest is that people have different words for it. Some people call them wilderness vigils. Some people call them long nights out of the stars and stones. They're basically time completely by yourself. In my tradition, we make tiny little bundles of prayers on ropes, and we put staves around us in a circle, and we put this rope around us so that we have a physical barrier that stops us from going out of that space. And so I'm not doing that next week, but I'm supporting a lot of people who are, praying for your lives, all of you that are brave enough to do that, to just, sometimes, I do it myself for sure. You just on and on and on. You just can't stop. You just can't stop. You just can't stop because there's this feeling underneath that's scary. Whatever it is, a disappointment, a hurt. I know that when I feel hurt, I talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk and talk until the feeling's gone away. And I think it's really brave to go out and really drop into the earth and drop into 4 days and 4 nights, no food, no water, no distractions, just the earth and the stars. And it sounds really glamorous, doesn't it? But my first 4 days, I can tell you, pissed it down. Absolutely pissed it down. Pissed it down. And so much. I had a blanket. And I think I had another change of top, like a cardigan or something. I had a blanket and a cardigan. And someone sweetly slipped me a black bin liner as I was going up. And I'll tell you, I spent the first 2 days either climbed inside the bin liner, trying to put it above my head so that, close it above my head, like my hands were shaking, or putting it over the top of me like Neil in The Young Ones when he was snotting all the time over the top of me. But my legs were still getting really wet. Oh, yeah, hard work. And then the sun came out. And it was like, I feel this year some resonance with the moments when it's sunny, of that feeling of deepest relief. It's been a big winter. I know for one and all it's been a big winter, and these moments when the sun comes out is releasing a sort of sense of relief in our bodies. And wow, let's get really into the rain because nature loves it. Let's love it. Let's love the rain. Let's love being out. Let's normalise being outdoors in all weathers. Let's just do it because it's the best place for us to be. It's the healthiest, most alive and magical place for us to be. So I'm supporting this vision quest, and I've done 4 times I've done this. And in my tradition, we go out for 4 nights, and then we go out for 7 nights, and then we go out for 9 nights, and then we go out for 13 nights. And you don't speak, you have your word taken away. That's the way that we put it. So you're not singing or making any sound at all. It's really an inward journey. Except that someone who's holding the space, medicine woman, medicine man, may come and visit you at some point. And there's a moment when they might pray with you and they might ask you or give you permission to speak. They may give you, they hand you a tobacco, which you have put down. And you can speak when you've got that in your hand. And I think only once that happened to me. I think it was in my 13 days, maybe 9 days into my 13 days. And there was so much I wanted to say and wanted to share, and all the layers and all the feelings and all the insights. It's quite incredible. But with that tobacco in my hand, I told this story. I told this version of this story. Once upon a time, there was a girl whose mother had died. Sadness filled the house like a noisy, steaming essential oil machine, aching and irritating and all-consuming. But it wasn't long before the father married again. And his new wife, she was haughty, they said. She was rude, they said. She was mean, they said. And she had 2 daughters. And she loved her 2 daughters, and she was desperate for her 2 daughters to have the best life and the finest life. And she really felt that she'd married down, marrying this guy with his single daughter, but there wasn't much left on the market. And so she had to always make sure that it was her daughters that got things first, that got the best of everything. And she'd never taught the daughters to do anything. They just preened themselves and cackled all the time and did their nails and their hair. And the young daughter, she was used to, her mother had been ill for a long time. She was used to looking after the house and cooking the food and sweeping the hearth. And they would laugh at her because she was dirty and her fingers were short and her hair was often scraped back. And they called her Cinderella. Look at you, covered in dirt and dust, so disgusting. And look at us. We have got the finest clothes and we've got the finest hair and we are so beautiful. Look at us. Look at us, Cinderella. We're so beautiful. We're just so beautiful. And they were really, really up themselves. And then, one day, an invitation arrived at the house. You are all summoned and welcomed to a great ball at the palace because the prince is looking for a bride. Oh, I want to marry a prince. Oh, I want to marry a prince. Oh, I'll marry the prince. I want to marry the prince. I want to marry the prince. I want to marry the prince. And so there was so much excitement in the house. There was push-up bras and glossy lipstick and frustration over hair not quite going right and decisions over how long the nails should be and what earrings to wear and blah, 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 all of this going on. And of course, Cinderella, you can't come with us because it would just be embarrassing. You would just look at you in that cardigan of patchwork. You would be a complete embarrassment to us, and we want an audience with the prince, so you can't go. Didn't want to go anyway, said Cinderella. She wasn't even sure if she did, because she hadn't had a moment to think. But when the day came and off they trotted, like, I was going to say something about an animal then, but I'm not going to, because it would be an insult. Off they trotted to the ball. Cinderella was left alone. And there was a moment when the quietness of the house was a balm, was a relief. There was a moment when the quietness around her felt good in her body because she could feel herself. But then she hit it. She hit a feeling of longing. And she started to cry. Tears are a river, they'll always take you somewhere. Tears are a river that'll always take you somewhere. And these tears were like a magical waterfall. And in the glistening of that magical waterfall, Cinderella's fairy godmother appeared, sparkling and jewel-like, kind. And she said to her, "Oh, Cinderella, of course you'll go to the ball." And she summoned a dress of such beauty. Nature gave Cinderella the dress that she deserved to wear. Moss and daffodil, rose petal and bluebell, tiny little bird feathers. It was a dress of such exquisite beauty. Cinderella gasped when it wrapped itself around her. And there were these shoes, beautiful sheepskin slippers, so light and so comfortable. Cinderella knew that she would be able to dance all night. But how am I going to get to the ball? Aha! The wave of the godmother's wand lifted up into the air, and she summoned a pumpkin from the garden, and she called upon the mice that were hiding amongst the skirting boards, and the rats who were around the bins, and the lizards in the pond. And so the mice and the rats, they turned into great horses with fine plumage, and the pumpkin turned into a golden carriage, and the lizards turned into footmen, and they opened the door and they said, "Cinderella, you shall go to the ball." And she stepped inside, and the fairy godmother looked for a moment very pleased with her creation, and did notice how precarious it all was. And she said, "Cinderella, you better be back by midnight, because this magic will begin to fade." And so Cinderella got to go to the ball. And as she opened the door to the ball, her dress began to move and shift again as butterflies started to spin around her. And oh my, people turned around and they gazed and they gawped. And it was the prince himself who made a beeline for her, and they danced. And they danced and they danced and they danced and they danced. Oh my, wow, they danced. They laughed and they danced and they span, and she quite forgot what the time was until she just caught herself looking up, and it was 10 minutes to midnight. And so she ran and ran and ran and ran and ran all the way back to the carriage where the carriage was waiting. "Quick," they said, and they started to thunder and thunder and thunder back to the home. But it became midnight suddenly, and bloop, the carriage turned into a pumpkin, and the mice and the rats, which were once horses, they just disappeared like back into their holes, and the lizard slunk away somewhere moist, and Cinderella was left by herself to run home. And that was when she realised that she only had one shoe on. She must have left it as she came out of the palace. And she couldn't worry about that now. She had to just keep on going, and she got back just in time. Her dress was in rags, she had one shoe on, and she lay there panting by the hearth when the others came in. And they were full of it. "Oh, it was lovely, and we danced with the prince, and he spoke to us, and then this girl came in, she ruined everything. She danced with him all night. She hogged him, she did. I mean, didn't she understand everyone should take turns, and obviously one of us is going to marry." On and on and on. Cinderella swept the hearth, and she lit a fire for them. And she massaged their sore feet from dancing all night. And finally, she got a little sleep by the fire. Well, the prince had been stirred very deeply. And he'd noticed amongst all the things that were very different about this beautiful, exquisite woman. She had very comfortable shoes on. And when he went outside, after she ran, he did follow her. And he saw that she tripped and she lost one of her slippers, and she picked it up. He picked it up. And he went to call after her, but she wasn't listening. She was gone, gone, gone. And he looked at the slipper and he thought to himself, I will find the owner of this slipper. I will find her. And so that's what he did. He told everyone that whoever's foot fitted in that slipper, that they would marry him. And the slipper went up and down the land, and lucky for Cinderella, really, that she had pretty wide feet. They were small, but they were pretty wide, so it was gaping at the side, and they were made by Mother Nature herself, so they fitted her feet perfectly. So even people that had the same size feet as her, they couldn't fit into that slipper. And he knew when he saw the feet in there, nope, 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 nope. But the sisters, oh, the sisters, they were not going to be beaten. And so when they saw that slipper, it was the mother who had the idea. She looked at the great feet of one of her sisters and she brought her the axe from the side of the fireplace and she said, cut off your toes. And the girl looked up at her horrified and she said, do it, cut off your toes. You won't need toes. You won't need them. Not when you're a princess. Not when you're a queen. You'll not need toes for nothing. So she cut off her toes and she wedged her feet into the shoes. They fit, they fit, they fit, she simpered to the prince. And that was when the prince thought, oh my God, this was a really terrible idea. What to do? He'd made one of those great declarations that you do in fairy tales, and so he had to marry her. And she hobbles off with him to the palace, but she hasn't gone very far when she's like, and the blood's squirting everywhere. And he looks and he says, these aren't your slippers, are they? And she's like, no, they're not. I want my toes back. I want my toes back. And so they go back to the house, and she gathers up her toes, and they go to A&E to see if they can put their toes back on. Her toes back on. And then there's the other sister. And the woman's still got the axe. The mother's still got the axe, and it's like caked in blood. She's just wiping it down her dress. And she says, cut off your heels. She's like, no, I'm not cut off my heels. Cut off your heels. What heels? What good are they? Come on, it's just a heel. My goodness sake, just cut them off and you will be a princess. Nay, you will be a queen. And so in the end she does. She cuts her heels off and she squashes them in. Probably one heel, because there's only one shoe, isn't there? One heel, she squashes them in, and the same thing, she goes off to the palace, and then she's like, she can't balance, she's like a weeble, she's just kind of absolutely no balance with a heel, and she's just going boom, flying about all over the place. And the prince looks at her, and the prince looks at the shoe and sees the blood streaming out of the shoe, and he gets what's gone on, and he's like, back you go, come on. And he can't just leave her because she can't stand, so he takes her back. And as he opens the door to the cottage, there's a girl sitting by the fire. And he may not have noticed her because she's doing a really good job of being invisible, but there's a blue butterfly that's landed on her shoulder. He suddenly remembers the butterflies on the dress of the girl. He's not that into fashion, but he remembered that. And he says, you try it on. She looks over at him. She's actually a bit reluctant to, because it's got, a bit of blood all over it. But she does try it on. She puts her foot into it, and it fits perfectly. And the prince holds out his hand, and she takes his hand. She steadies herself with his hand, and as she does so, you can see the other slipper on her other foot, and she looks him deep in the eyes, takes a breath, and then walks out with her slippers on into the world, walks away from the sisters and the mother and the father and the prince. And she walks out into the world, into the trust of the earth under her feet and the sun and the stars and the moon above her. And she lives happily ever after. So let's take this story in different sections. Let's take this last bit. In my version, which is not, it's just this version that I'm telling right now, where she holds on to the prince, where she steadies herself with the prince's hand. Where is it in our life that we need support? Where is it in our life where we need to reach out and be steadied so that we can walk our path? There's so much in this story. It's one of the oldest fairy stories, and it's found all over the world. I thought the oldest one was from China, about 850 AD, but it isn't, as it turns out. The oldest one ever found is earlier than that. I've got it written down here. It's called Rhodopis, and it's a Greek one, and it was written sometime between 7 BC and 23 AD. But hey, this story is much older than that. It's in the 7 basic plots as being, one of the most popular stories ever told. Rags to riches. And the great storylines in the old one from China, which was that I think there's a great fish. I think the fish arrives out of the sky or something like that, and then she uses the bones to prey upon, to pray for what she wants. And her dress is made of kingfisher feathers, and the sisters are killed with flying stones. Ye Shen, I think the story's called. And then there's the story that we know, the Charles Perrault, really, I think is the story that it is in Grimm Tales. It's there's a version in Arabian Nights, but Perrault puts the pumpkin in. And for me, because I grew up on the Disney version, the root of most of my problems, I'm sure, is this story about the the pumpkin and the lizards and the transformation. And man, it's just riddled, this story. It's just riddled with suppression on all levels. It's like, first of all, that's what happens if there's not, I think the mother, she is the embodiment of self-love, okay? The kind of bedrock of inner love, nurture and caring. She's not there. Yeah, she's not there. And when that's not there, anything can get in there and attack. We take what looks like love and isn't, So then there's this wicked stepmother role. She can come in, and it's not activated the masculine, the man, the father. There's an emptiness there. He barely gets a mention in the whole story. And so there's this girl who's got a dead mother and a completely absent father. It's a cultural pandemic. Yeah, the dead mother and the completely absent father. And it's, if we take stories as a psychic landscape, that's in all of us. And, it's on the outside and on the inside. And so all this can come in, the bitches and the meanness, and what this story does, I think, is just keeps women separate and untrusting. Really, it's like on so many levels, it's just a really dangerous story, and the way that it's told in our culture. Firstly, not to trust your sisters, that the mothers are wicked, that the thing to aim for in life is to catch the eye of a prince you never even met before, who has got kind of worldly guilt and goods. By guilt, I mean, golden, gilded. Really, I mean, I've just had these kinds of stories rammed down my throat, and I just want to take them out of my body, So in these retellings, and the way I want to retell these stories, it's like, where are the stories where the sisters support each other? Where are the stories where the mother comes in and the father's, healthy and whole? It's all healthy and whole, and that's the way I want. I don't mind where a story starts from, but that's where I want stories to end now, as a way of really remending and reweaving our world through fairy stories, through all different kinds of stories. And I was thinking as well about the pumpkin and the mice and the rats and the lizard, and thinking, wow, these were normal things. Basically, the story is like, we are conjuring great magic from normal things. But, who's got a pumpkin growing in their garden? Some of us, I hope, but I was thinking it'll be, kind of Roundup in a recycling box. We're not even taking responsibility for our own recycling. I'm not taking responsibility for my own recycling anymore. I just put it in a box and it gets taken away. Oh, I want my life back. I want my life back on all these levels, in all these ways. Yeah, so that's the story I've been thinking about. It's a shame that I won't be telling it with a great plume of steam coming across my face to create the magic. I mean, I would have been better off with a bong. But there you go. And I think that is probably the end of today's podcast, except to say that on Sunday I'm going to be telling a story at the Bardic finals, because in Glastonbury there is a bard appointed every year. And that next week's podcast, I'll talk you through that ceremony and tell you what happened and read some extracts from the Bardic pieces. But thanks so much for listening. I wonder how it is for you, how it was for you, what you found delicious and what you didn't. Yeah. Feeling like there's something kind of markety I should be saying. Like and subscribe. Keep listening. Tell your friends about it. Let's keep meeting up in this place to excavate our souls with story. Lots of love.